strange to be coming up here after that. There's 4 lights. That's a Star Trek thing. My mother never had it easy. She grew up initially in Mexico, where I was born as well. And she actually started working at a very young age. Back then, you know, it was kind of a thing to whether or not you wanted to let your kids go to school or not, and especially girls. So she took on the responsibility of running the little corner store that her father had opened at the ripe age of about 8 years old. Yeah, she still managed to be able to go to school for a little while. Her and my dad actually, they went to school till about 6th grade, and then they had to drop out and work full time. So she had it a little rough, right? Life wasn't really easy. Later on in life, got married to my father. They moved to Los Angeles, where we first started living in the LA area, and eventually we moved up to Northern California. By the time we were in Northern California, I was in high school. So if you all are familiar with Fresno, that area, there you go, Central Valley. So Central Valley, we're living in the Central Valley, and my dad he was never really so good at working for other people. So the way to work for himself was to install flooring, like tile, marble, and such. And he decided we were gonna take it to the next level. We were gonna open up a shop. So he and my mother poured all of their life savings into opening up this tile and flooring store. Wholesale, retail, you name it. We even had installation crews. And actually the first 5 years, as you might know, for small businesses are the hardest, especially for the owners. So it's not an exaggeration to say blood, sweat, and tears. We spent all of our lives there, those 5 years. I would go before school and after school, and my parents basically lived there. We even had a little couch in the back and a little kitchen, just so that we didn't have to leave the store too much, right? Because we had a lot of work to do. But the good news is, because of that dedication, that thing thrived. It was actually really nice because it felt like we had finally accomplished this kind of idea of the American dream. The store was doing super well. We'd actually hired uncles and aunts and people from our hometown, and so we were really sustaining this entire little community with kind of my father at the helm as the owner of the store. And things were going really, really well. Until 2008, my father had an affair with a woman who was doing drugs. And I don't know if he did drugs before that. We've heard rumors through the grapevine that maybe he had done drugs for a long time and we just didn't know. Could be true. But either which way, he, much like with everything in life, doesn't do anything half-assed. So he went full-blown into addiction. And needless to say, it all kind of crumbled like a house of cards. One thing after the other. All the things that we had built. This store was sustaining jobs. It was sustaining, actually everyone who worked there had purchased homes because of how well it was going. My parents had bought a new house. We bought a house down the street from their house that we were renting to another aunt and uncle to give them an opportunity to, stop renting apartments. And little by little, as the store started to go under, all of these people started losing their jobs. They lost their homes, one after another. Also happened to be that time in the economy. We lost the house that was down the street where my aunt and uncle lived, and they had to find a new place to go. And eventually, the mortgage company told my mother it was time to go. So my mom had dedicated all of this effort and energy and poured everything into her marriage, into the shop, into all of these things, just to watch it all fall apart. And by the way, she was no longer welcome at the shop. So she couldn't even go and try to help, make it better, make it work. It was hard to even get a hold of my dad, so she wasn't even getting any kind of money from him. Hell, I don't think he even found out he got divorced, because they had to kind of process it without him. So it was crazy. When she got notice, we gathered up as much of her things as we could that she didn't need, and we had a giant yard sale, and I just remember her sitting there putting, all of her life's possessions out, trying to get rid of as much as she could, and her sisters just kept, walking around crying, going, "Muddy, your things, all of your lovely things." Because we do tend to hoard a bit. So things matter. And eventually we got, rid of as much as we could, and we packed her up, and we started searching for houses. Couldn't find houses for her to rent. Decided to downgrade to apartments. We weren't finding many apartments either. The housing market was horrible at that time, if y'all remember kind of what happened around 2008, 2009.
Yes.
It was terrible. And I was actually living 2 hours away in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I was driving 2 hours every weekend, sometimes during the week and missing work, to help her deal with her crumbling life and her crippling depression. And this one particular weekend, we'd probably gotten like 3 or 4 rejections in a row, and I finally just couldn't take it anymore. We get back in the car, and I don't know, I guess everything just kind of hit me at once, I'd been trying to hold it together for her and be strong and, not cry and whatnot. And it just all hit me, and I just started crying uncontrollably. I just kept saying, "What are we gonna do, Mom? What are we gonna do? Like, do I need to move home? Am I gonna have to commute 2 hours every day just so I can move in with you so we can afford rent for you? Like, what are we gonna do?" And she said, "You are gonna do nothing. This is not your problem." It was like this moment that I decided to finally be vulnerable, gave her the space to step up. And she did. She was strong, and she told me she was going to figure it out. I left back to the Bay for the week, frankly, incredibly worried, thinking there's no freaking way. What are we going to do? But by the time I came back the following Saturday, she had figured it out. She convinced a little community of retirement homes, mobile homes, to let her sneak in there even though she wasn't of age. And she used the last of her life savings to purchase a little mobile home, a fixer-upper. And after that, it was like motivation just lit her up. She was going over there and painting the walls and fixing it up and making it her own. And it was this like fire was burning in her that I hadn't seen in years. It was amazing. She even found a new job that was just down the street and started working again because, by the way, the shop had been her work. So she was starting a whole new career in manufacturing from scratch all over again. And she did, and she was doing very well. She was working, she was thriving, things were going extremely well until 2023. We had historic rain in Northern California. And during that rain, she called me and she said, "Honey, they're evacuating us. I think it's just out of caution. Don't worry, but I'm going to your aunt's. There's some flooding happening, but I'm pretty sure we're fine." She wasn't fine. A couple days later when she called me, she said, "The water's in the house. The whole thing is full of mold. I have to call FEMA." We were up to our ears in FEMA paperwork, and she was temporarily out of work because her job was down the street and had also flooded. I mean, everything that could go wrong had gone wrong, and this poor woman was trying to figure it out all over again. Luckily, the one part she hadn't thought about in her little dynasty was that my older sister, who had had the opportunity to go to college, go to law school, had built up a very nice career. And this was the perfect opportunity for her to buy her a house. So my sister purchased her a brand new house, and we moved her in a few months later. And I'm so happy and so at peace to say that she got it all fixed up the way she wanted. Inside, there's plants everywhere, which she loves, because my mother loves everything green. And in the mornings, every day, she goes outside. She sits in her yard, surrounded by her pretty little plants, and she just quietly listens to the birds. And she finally has the peace she's been searching for since she was 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.